Hi, everyone. So a while ago, a few weeks ago, I put a video rather, on my Facebook and Instagram about something that I've been really passionate about again these last few months or so. This would be a video about the Jehovah's Witnesses. God's been really, drawing me towards a place right now where I feel like I need to focus more on this topic. I've been praying about this and I've been wondering, how I should even do these videos. I kind of don't even know how this video is going to turn out because I'm really just speaking from my heart right now. I don't really have a, set list of things that I want to talk about, but this is just a video I wanted to make to share maybe a few things with you guys about this topic that I think might be helpful. Before Meldor, before Doreen Virtue, before Cultish, before Fringe Pop with Mike Heiser, before it all started, there were Jehovah's Witnesses. Some of you know this about me, and some of you don't. But I'm going to venture to say that most of you do not realize my backstory with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Some of you have briefly heard about it, but basically, God used the Jehovah's Witnesses to get me out of the New Age. And I will always have a special place in my heart, a love for the Jehovah's Witnesses. So we're talking years back, maybe 2011, I believe it was, that this all happened. I was in the New Age. I was deeply in the New Age. And it was, again, I was more into the New Thought part of it. And I had always considered myself a Christian. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it is a long story, and I do go into detail on my testimony video. I'll put a link to that video in the description of this video, so if you want to watch it and get the full story, you can. I also briefly mentioned this on our Cultish interview, but I had a lot of Bible questions. I probably had the same questions that a lot of you have, about the Bible, how it came to be. I had questions about hell. I had questions about Jesus claiming to be God, just the normal basic questions that I think all Christians ask and need to know. And I basically thought all religions believed in the same thing. If you called yourself a Christian, to me and my mindset at that time, we all just basically believed in the same thing, just in different ways. And if you want to expand that belief, I believed that about everybody in the world, that we all believed that God was, the same thing. We all worshiped and believed in the same God, just in different ways. And that's one reason I explained why there were so many religions. Well, in this case, I remember one night I was meditating. And in my mind, it was like a form of prayer. I was praying, to get answers to my questions. And lo and behold, not even 24 hours later, here come the Jehovah's Witnesses at my door. I thought that I had manifested them. I did. I thought that I brought them to me. And I invited them in. And I was happy to see them. I was pleased to see them, which I don't think that they're used to. I think they're used to people kind of being rude to them. So I could see the glee on their face, the joy that, oh man, somebody, somebody wants to talk to us, and I did. So long story short, it didn't take very long for me to realize something was very wrong. And what it was is that I didn't realize that a lot of what they believed was actually true. I thought that the things that they believed were like a rumor, like, no, you guys got it wrong. You got to have that wrong. That can't be true. And one of them was that Jesus was Michael the Archangel. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus is not God, that he is Michael the Archangel. And I'm going to kind of take this minute to kind of give a brief summary of the differences of things that they believe compared to Christianity. They do not believe Jesus is God. In fact, they believe the Trinity to be a very pagan, evil belief. If there's one thing that's pounded into the Jehovah's Witness mind, it's that Jesus is not God. That is an evil belief. That is a deception from Satan, and only the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower organization, has it right. They do not believe in a mortal soul. So in other words, whenever you die, you do not go to heaven, you do not go to hell, you sleep. They believe in soul sleep, which means that you sleep until the resurrection happens. Which brings me to the next thing is hell. Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe in hell. They believe that it's actually, again, a very deceptive, evil belief that is crept into the churches, that is not true and is nowhere in the Bible. They do not celebrate what they consider to be worldly holidays. They do not celebrate Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Christmas, birthdays, Thanksgiving, of course, Halloween. They consider themselves to be separate from the world. So that's one reason why they do not celebrate these holidays. If anything's associated with paganism, they will not have anything to do with it, which can be a little inconsistent at times, I have found, but to them, they believe that the more separate they are from the world, the more closer they are to Jehovah and his will. They do have a mixture of faith plus works, which means that, yes, they believe Jesus died for their sins, but they also believe that you have to uphold and maintain that salvation, because in the organization, the Watchtower organization, the religion that houses these people and the beliefs that they hold, you have to maintain a good status in Jehovah's organization. This means you have to do many things. You have to go out in what they call field service, which is going door to door and spreading the good news of the kingdom, which we'll get to in a minute of what that good news is. You have to attend the Kingdom Hall. You have to basically live by a certain standard that is the standard that Jehovah would have them have. There's a lot more to that, but again, I'm being very brief and basic. They have their own version of the Bible, which is very important. It's made by Jehovah's Witnesses for Jehovah's Witness theology. This is one way that we get a lot of these differing beliefs, is that if you were to read most any other Bible, you could clearly see the problems in the theology. So if they don't want Jesus to be God, well, change it in your Bible and that can be so. They don't believe everybody's born again, which is a huge problem. They believe that only a certain amount of people are going to heaven. 144,000 Jehovah's Witnesses go to heaven. The rest of the Jehovah's Witnesses, they call it a earthly calling, stay here on earth, on paradise earth, after Armageddon happens. There's a lot to this, but basically the average Jehovah's Witness believes that they have a earthly calling where they're supposed to stay here on earth. To the average Jehovah's Witness, going to heaven is not necessarily a good thing. To a Christian, going to heaven is amazing. It's the goal. But to them, heaven is, I kind of think of it as like pushing papers. It's all business, and you're up there ruling with Jesus and, but if you're down here on earth, you get to do all the fun stuff and be a part of that. But their view of what it means to go to heaven and what heaven is very different. And that basically is the message of the kingdom to a Jehovah's Witness. So whenever they're going door to door, they're bringing this message to you that you could live forever on paradise earth. Jesus is a part of that, but you are not to put Jesus above Jehovah. To them, Jesus is not Jehovah. You are not to pray to Jesus. You do not worship Jesus. That is not okay in the eyes of the Jehovah's Witness. One thing about the Jehovah's Witness religion that I think is very important, and if you watch Leah Remini, she used to be a Scientologist, which is a cult. And it's a cult in the sense of how they control their members, their behavior, their information, things like that. Same with Jehovah's Witnesses. She actually did a special on the Jehovah's Witness religion. She did a show on them and had ex-Jehovah's Witnesses come on her show, which is genius. I'm telling you, if you want to know about the religion, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses are very good resources. Of course, I think that, a Jehovah's Witness that's turned Christian is good because they can tell you what the Bible actually teaches compared to, what they were taught as a Jehovah's Witness, where I find personally a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses leave and become atheists. They are angry, bitter atheists. They want nothing to do with God. They really think that that's who God is, which kind of brings me full circle to this. The Jehovah's Witness religion shuns their members. If you are what they call excommunicated, you are not to even be looked at. You are not to be talked to. You are shunned. One reason why they put up such a wall to hear what we have to say is you're talking about mothers that will have their children taken away, fathers that will lose their wives and children, and friends, family, sometimes jobs. You're talking about a culture within this religion that you will get kicked out of. And you're taught that anything outside of that religion is evil and satanic. It's abuse is what it is. And the episode that Leah Remini does is really good about talking about this abuse, but it also talks about the sexual abuse that happens within the religion. There is something that the Jehovah's Witnesses call the two-witness rule. And again, there's a lot more to this, but there's a lot of sexual abuse cases that have been brought against the religion. So you have a lot of pedophiles within this religion. You have people that really need to be in jail, that need help, but they don't do anything about it because of the policies of the religion and the way that they do things. And remember, you don't question Jehovah's organization. So there's a lot I could say about that because another one of my passions, I mentioned this in a previous video, but I love children. One of my degrees is in early childhood multicultural education. I love learning about children. I love learning about their development. I love learning about their behavior, things like that. I love learning about their little brains, and I love children. And so that's something that kind of pulls at my heartstrings personally. And that's one thing. There's many activists within this ministry that you'll see that they're doing something about this, and it's working. The religion is really under a microscope right now. So there's a lot more to that. Again, there's so much more to all of this, but I do think it's very important to mention that. I will also have resources about this in the description of the video to go with that as well. Guys, there's so much to go into about their beliefs, and I could spend this entire video going over just that. So I'm going to kind of get back into how I got into all of this, because you guys, I learned a lot of people skills witnessing to Jehovah's Witnesses. They're tough. They're very indoctrinated. If you find a Jehovah's Witness that actually, can agree with you and talk with you and be a little bit more fluid with their beliefs, you got yourself a thinker. That's a good thing. In my experience, most of the Jehovah's Witnesses that I have talked to are very rigid, and they're not there to listen to you. They're there to teach you. They're the ones that have the truth. You're the one that needs to be taught the truth. So what I find that most Christians do is they kind of take on that teaching role. They want to take the reins, take the steering wheel, and just be like, oh no, you guys, you got it all wrong. No, let me tell you what the Bible actually says. And so they do. And I mean, in my head, all I see is like this train crashing, into this wall, derailing itself and just absolutely annihilating the argument. Honestly, that's what I see. When I figured out that my beliefs were just garbage, basically, and I discovered what Jehovah's Witnesses believed, and I realized the deception that they were in, how could I not do something? And it was at that time that I got pulled into what I call counter cult ministry. And yes, I'm going to use the C word. It's a cult. It's a very strong word. And when we hear the word cult, we kind of think of, Charles Manson, or we think of Jonestown. We think of these, really obvious, drink the Kool-Aid kind of groups. There's a definition behind what a cult technically is. One of the people that I refer to a lot that I love, Dr. Walter Martin, who is just a legend in the areas of, witnessing to cult members and the occult, by the way. He gives this definition. By the term cult, I mean nothing derogatory to any group so classified. A cult, as I define it, is any religious group which differs significantly in one or more respects as to belief or practice from those religious groups which are regarded as the normative expressions of religion in our total culture. You have Christianity, okay? You have Christianity how it's always been since the first century. And then here comes the 1800s. I still don't know exactly. It's like the devil got bored or something. There's all these religions just popping up out of nowhere in the 1800s. You have Christian Science, you have Mormonism, you have Jehovah's Witnesses, Phineas Quimby comes out. You have all these religions and all these, different, denominations just kind of popping up out of the woodwork, claiming, divine authority. And you have the essentials of Christianity, that if you were to put somebody on a desert island with a Bible and they were to read the Bible, they would get the basics, very easily get the essentials of Christianity out of the Bible by itself. You would understand, Jesus and who he is. You would understand the gospel. Now, what happens with a cult is they'll take those essentials and they'll redefine them. They'll take an absolute, complete left turn from what that means to be a Christian and redefine it. Now, here's the other thing, and this is really important. There is a cult expert out there, Stephen Hassan. Some of you know who he is. He has what he calls the bite model. And there's a whole, other video I could do about this. It's the control that the religious or, business organization, whatever it is, it's the control that they have over their members. The bite model is basically a model for mind control. It sounds really, sci-fi, science fiction-y stuff, but it's not. It's real and it's an actual thing. What it stands for is behavioral control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. And each one of these, he gives a list of how the institution or religion emphasizes that control, how they get that control. Jehovah's Witnesses, they're not allowed to think certain things. How do you control somebody's thoughts? A lot of ways it's through fear. So for a Jehovah's Witness, if they're doubting what they're believing, then basically that's Satan trying to get them away from God's one true organization. So in those ways, in that aspect, that's how we get them being a cult. So when I got into this ministry at that time, there was a lot of people that were already in this ministry that taught me a lot. If you want to know what a Jehovah's Witness believes, my personal advice to you is to go talk to an ex-Jehovah's Witness. They are the best resources. Most of the things that I learned about the beliefs, things that a Jehovah's Witness will never tell you at the door, you learn from the people that have gotten kicked out or left, because they'll tell you the things that most Jehovah's Witnesses aren't allowed to tell you. There was one woman in particular, I'm going to kind of name her, my friend Julie. My friend Julie, she's an ex-Jehovah's Witness and, became a Christian. And that woman took me under her wing. She gave me the resources I need, answered all my questions, and took that time to really pour into me. I really needed that. It was because of that mentorship that she gave me. I got this love for the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I also got this deep understanding, as much as I could understand for somebody who has never been a Jehovah's Witness, for what they go through and how hard it is for a lot of them and how far away from Christ they are and how lost they are. And this is what gets me. And this is what makes me so passionate to reach them, is they think they have the truth. They're not allowed to question it. They're not allowed to wonder or look at the information I might have for them. So I had to learn very creative ways on how to talk to them and reach them. My friend Julie and many other people like her in this ministry helped me with that, gave me a lot of skills and a lot of tips that I have found to be very useful and helpful in this ministry. I went to Kingdom Halls. I went and I approached Jehovah's Witnesses out on the streets when they came to my door. I invited them in. I went to their conventions. I went to their memorials. I wanted to learn everything I could about this religion from ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, great resource, but also from them. I believe, and you guys have heard me say this before, you have to seek to understand first, then be understood. This is my own personal tried and true way of witnessing to people. I do think that there is, a time and place for having certain methods of witnessing. I think we should always, bring up the gospel, and we need to always, give that to people. Jehovah's Witnesses are a whole different beast, though. And I think that if we understand their mindset, if we understand what they're thinking and what they believe, then we will know what our words sound like to them. And then we can work with that. We can understand, okay, if I say this, they're going to shut down. If one can understand how difficult it is for a Jehovah's Witness to leave their religion, they're leaving everything they know, then they would have a lot more grace. They would probably have a lot more love and patience. I will be the first to admit that, yes, it takes a little bit more work to reach a Jehovah's Witness. I know that, and it's not always easy, but there are ministries out there. There are people that have devoted their lives to help Christians reach Jehovah's Witnesses and to help Jehovah's Witnesses who are leaving the organization and to reach them as well. And I'm going to throw this in here. It's not just the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's Mormons too. They kind of go hand in hand. Their beliefs are totally different, but when it comes to reaching them and having, vastly different beliefs from what Christianity actually is, Mormons definitely need to be reached just as much as Jehovah's Witnesses. And these ministries, I'm going to give them a shout out, and I will have links in the description of this video to get to these ministries. Please use them. They are the ministries that helped me. It's very clear, great information. Evidence Ministries is the first one I'm going to talk about briefly. My friend Keith Walker and his wife run Evidence Ministries, and they specialize in witnessing to Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses. I also kind of want to give a shout out to this man, Wilbur Lingle. Again, this is this is on Mormonism. See what I mean by it going hand in hand? This is on Mormonism, but he also specializes again in Jehovah's Witnesses. And it's how to reach them in love, how to talk to them. What are some good talking points that you could get them to think, and because thinking critically about your beliefs is something that is not taught to a Jehovah's Witness. You do not question the organization, because to them, if you question the organization, you are questioning Jehovah himself. That's a no-no. So whenever you can actually get them thinking and the wheels turning like, ooh, that doesn't sound right, that's good. We want that. And there's ways that you can get them to do that. The next one that I'm going to recommend is Reasoning from the Scriptures with a Jehovah's Witness by Rhodes. This one I have completely marked up. This is a good one because it goes over their beliefs. It goes over what the Bible teaches about those particular beliefs and gives talking points on how you can reach them. I didn't plan this, by the way. I just kind of grabbed books off of my shelf and decided to show them to you. This one's a classic, Crisis of Conscience by Ray Franz. Now, the reason why this is a classic is that Ray Franz used to be a governing body member. Now, I might mention that the organization that I talk about is governed by a group of men that make all the spiritual decisions for the Jehovah's Witnesses. I usually say that if your religion it looks like a government where you have, a one person or a group of people that acts sort of like a prophet of some kind, that they're closer to God. And then you have people underneath them that, relay that information down here, and then you have the lay people down here. So for the Jehovah's Witnesses, what you have is you have Jehovah God up here at the very top. Then you have Jesus Christ. Then you have what they call the faithful and discreet slave class. I know this is, weird words for us. I'm actually not using a lot of their terminology on purpose because I think it would be very confusing for some people listening, but to them, that's the governing body. That's what that is. And the governing body is closest to Jehovah God and Jesus, because remember, Jesus is not Jehovah to them. The governing body, underneath that, you have what they call traveling overseers, and then you have the congregations, and within the congregations, you have the elders. And underneath the elders, you have the basic, Jehovah's Witnesses, and even they have, certain different tiers of privilege, I guess is the word I'll say. But that's the basic makeup of that religion. Well, Ray Franz was a governing body member. He basically wrote this book talking about what goes on within the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And he was actually kind of nice about it. He talked about things that are not allowed to be talked about. And it was through this book that many people discovered how certain beliefs came to be in the Jehovah's Witness religion. And it was very shocking for many people. I might also add that the Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of people kind of consider them what some would call a doomsday cult. Basically, they believe that Armageddon's going to come any day. Well, there's certain things that lead up to Armageddon, but they have predicted the end of the world, Armageddon, a few times and have been wrong every single time, of course. So they literally do live in this sense of fear every day that, it could come. They could die in Armageddon. And to a Jehovah's Witness, that's a very scary thing. Now, again, if you don't know much about their beliefs, this is one reason why I'm giving you these resources, because it is important to understand what this means to them, so you can effectively reach them. Another book, and by the way, I've read all these books. These are fantastic resources for you. This is by actually one of my friends, Brian Garcia. He has a great testimony. He was one of the first testimonies that I heard when I started learning about Jehovah's Witnesses. And he wrote this book. It's called Can I Get a Witness? How to Understand and Set Free a Jehovah's Witness. This is a quick, easy read, and it's really well written. I believe you can get that off of Amazon. There's so many books, but I'm going to do one more, again, by my friend Wilbur Lingle. How to Approach a Jehovah's Witness in Love. So he wrote two, one for Mormons, one for Jehovah's Witnesses. This one was by far probably the one that I looked at the most. There's some good stuff in here. He really had a really loving and unique way to reach them. So this is where this video is going. I'm just kind of winging it. This was my first ministry. Before I got into anything, it was the Jehovah's Witnesses. It was them. They were the ones through these means that I learned everything that I relay to you guys, especially my mannerisms and how to reach people, like how to witness. And what I did is I watched other people, and I watched how they approached the Jehovah's Witness or whoever it was that they were witnessing to, and I watched the results. And these people, never compromising, but their methods were mind-blowing to me. Not many people know about these ministries. I think that there's just this wealth of information of ministries that are out there that people really need to know about. Another one, I don't have a book for this particular person, but Christy Darlington, her ministry was how I met Julie. Julie, my friend, my ex-Jehovah's Witness friend, her ministry was extremely pivotal for me in all of this. It was her ministry that really helped me to take root in how to reach out to them. And again, I'll put her link in the description as well of this video. I see so much where Christians are very zealous and very passionate about, what we believe, about getting the word out there and about, teaching people about what the Bible really says. And because I have started in this particular ministry and with Jehovah's Witnesses, who would clearly be considered a cult, it has given me a foundation for why I do what I do and how I do it. I mean, I think that there's a time and a place to be intense. We never need to compromise. If I'm talking to a Jehovah's Witness, I'm going to change my whole way of how I talk and how I try to reach them. I'm going to use an example that I heard my friend Keith Walker use one time. This actually happened. They go every year to what's called the Manti pageant, which unfortunately I don't think that Mormons do anymore, or they're not allowed. Christians aren't allowed anymore. I'm not sure which, but this was a time whenever he was going to this pageant, which is basically a Mormon convention of some sort, for those of you that don't know. And of course, they're there to reach Mormons. They're there to witness to them. And Mormons, that's a whole other video. They believe that they can become a god. They believe their ultimate goal is to become what they call exaltation, to become a god, and they can have their own planet. And, the way that they think that they can do this is they actually believe they can become perfect. They believe that they can become sinless. And the way to do that is by, following all the commandments. It sounds impossible even saying this, like how hard is that? Wow. But, they believe this. And well, Keith, he's having this conversation with this woman. And Keith, if you're watching this, sorry if I, make your story a little bit more brief. And but he was in this conversation with this woman, and this woman was saying, that, well, I haven't sinned for a whole year. And any one of us would be like, yeah, right. Like that's impossible. I've sinned probably 10 times just making this video. I mean, we don't even realize when we sin, but in her mind, in her belief system, she had not sinned. She had obtained, sinlessness. There was one time that I didn't sin for a whole year is what she said. And Keith didn't miss a beat, looks at her and, he says, well, why'd you start again? What he was doing is that he was meeting her at her beliefs where she was at. And he used that as an opportunity to make her think and realize that's impossible, because he knew his audience. And I think that's really important, you guys, to know your audience, which brings me to another metaphor I'm going to use because, why not? I've said this before in the video and you'll hear me say it again. Understand first, then be understood. That is my method. That is my personal method, because I feel like one of the first steps in apologetics or even witnessing is to know your audience, know who you're talking to. You have to know your opponent's beliefs. You have to know the opposing beliefs that are coming onto you. I kind of think of this as inoculation. Like, you don't keep yourself from those beliefs. You go and you research them so that you can have a defense for them. And Jehovah's Witnesses don't do that. They don't believe that. It's part of the mind-controlled bite model that I mentioned earlier. Whole story around that. But anyway, I remember taking a class in college. It was a sociology class, fascinating class. But one of the things that we were discussing that day was about different cultures. And our teacher gives a example of marketing. There was a company that wanted to market soup, and it was an instant soup. And the company was based here in America. Well, the target audience that they were trying to go to just happened to be in this little town in Italy. So they go to Italy and they do, marketing. They put out their, little tables and they give samples of this soup. And they discover that, 98% of people love it. It tastes amazing. So they're like, oh yeah, jackpot, slam dunk. Let's go sell this stuff in this town. So they do. They get it all prepared. They go over there. They put it on the shelves of the shops and it fails horribly. And they're like, what went wrong? Why? People loved the way that this tasted. Why is nobody buying this? This makes no sense. So long story short, they did some research to discover why this happened, because they basically lost their shirts in this. And they report back. Come to find out, they had not done their homework with the culture. Turns out that in this culture, how much time you spend making food for your family is a reflection of how much you love them. So if you are making a 3-hour meal for your family, that is a reflection of your love for them. So if you put soup in a microwave and it's done within 1 minute, what is that going to tell your family? So it was the culture. They didn't know their audience. They had no idea. They just kind of went in guns blazing saying, yeah, let's do this. We do this as Christians. We don't know our audience. We give instant soup to people all the time and we get confused about their reaction. We think that there is this one size fits all. You witness to the atheist next door the same way you would witness to the Jehovah's Witness at your door, and it just doesn't work that way. So with that being said, it is important to, understand that there is some aspect of changing the way you speak and how you do things. I think that even I myself have a responsibility, to, get information out there. And this is my first love in ministry. This was everything. I did Jehovah's Witness ministry for years. I got less involved in it when I got pregnant with my second child. So because I knew my time was going to change a lot. Anybody who's a parent out there with young kids knows exactly what I mean. So I kept up with their beliefs because they change every year. Yes, their beliefs change every year and they look forward to that. They call it new light. I also want to mention that, again, before I even did anything with my YouTube channel, before I did anything with, Doreen, before Meldor, before everything, I actually did make a series on the Jehovah's Witness religion, except it's on another YouTube channel. And I'm really proud of it, but it's kind of outdated at this point. The information in it still stands. I've repeated some of it in this video, but it was a 6-part series, and I was teaching a class, and the audio is not very good. The visuals are not the best. So I'm thinking I might redo that series and, make it into a series here on my YouTube channel I have now. If you want access to that, I will also put those in the description of this video as well. But it goes over everything that you need to know about a Jehovah's Witness. It goes over my past, how I got into it, what they believe, how to witness to them, what not to do, what to do. A chunk of it is their beliefs, though, what they believe and how to counteract that. I think that it will take a while because, I am in seminary. I am, doing a lot of schoolwork. My children are priority. It takes a lot of time to do these videos. So over time, I will find myself probably piecing those together. And I've been wanting to do this video for a while because I love the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not just them, it's Mormons too. It's New Agers. Guys, can I say something? Let me tell you the secret ingredient to witnessing. This is from being in ministry and seeing it done right and seeing it done wrong. The secret ingredient is love. I'm not talking about a compromising, tolerant love. I'm talking about a love that makes you want to see them get saved. I still think every single day about the woman. There's one woman in particular. She changed my life and didn't even know it. She's still a Jehovah's Witness to this day. And she met with me for a long time, a very zealous Jehovah's Witness. And it was because of her. And, of course they come 2 by 2. She brought different people with her every week. But this one woman in particular was just, she was the one that was that was in my life, the Jehovah's Witness that God used to teach me about their religion while I was going through my terrible transition, my lonely transition of coming out of the New Age. And then you see how lost they are. To see how some people talk to them sometimes, it's just, they're doing more damage than good. And if you cannot speak the truth in love, you're going to do way more harm than good. I think about this woman every day and how lost she is. And I think about all the Jehovah's Witnesses out there that have their head in the sand. They don't want to know the truth. I think that we should have this, unique heart for anybody that we're trying to reach, whether it's somebody who's, deep within, the hyper-charismatic movement, or, a Mormon, a Jehovah's Witness, whoever it is, that's caught knee deep in deception. The first essential ingredient is love. When I first started witnessing to Jehovah's Witnesses, I kind of want to point out that I did not know a lot about my Bible at the time. It was through learning the erroneous beliefs of the Jehovah's Witnesses that I learned a lot about my Bible. I learned where Jesus was God. I learned, about hell. I learned about things that are contrary to their beliefs because I had to know if it was in there. I didn't know everything about the Bible. There's absolutely no way that we can say that we have to know everything before we can witness to these people. We need to have a basic understanding of their beliefs. God can use you. And also, if there's anything specific, this is really where my heart's at lately. I will always do, New Age stuff, and I will continue to do things that I am passionate about. Like I want to do a video on the Book of Enoch. Everybody's been asking for that as a follow-up to my Book of Thomas video. Things like that. I go where where the Spirit leads me. And lately, this has just really been on my heart. So I kind of want to get feedback. Let me know in the comments on Instagram what you guys want to see from this. If there's anything specific that you'd really like to have, see covered, let me know. This is my first love. This is my first ministry. I'm really happy to kind of be coming back and revisiting this because my life is at a completely different point now than where it was when I first got started in it. And I always say, I want to use this platform for something that matters, for something that's good. And I think that the gospel and saving souls and, telling others about Jesus is the most important thing that we could do as Christians. Because I didn't map out this video, I know that after it ends, I'm just gonna, be like, darn it, Melissa, why didn't you add that? But this is me. I hope that this was a very edifying video for you guys. I hope it gives you, a starting point, that it gets your feet wet, that it gives you almost like a spiritual appetite to reach these people. So, talked for about an hour. I could go on and on about this. I have really enjoyed this video. I could go easily another hour. I love this topic. I will be looking forward to doing more videos on this. And thanks for hanging out with me. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon.